Welcome to Mindset Mondays with DTK. This is episode number 180 in an ongoing series of live broadcasts designed for folk who who figured out that the way to get better at doing what one does is to get better at being who you are, who you are at your core. So fascinating. Love the idea that this is the 180th episode. I feel like this has been going on for an eternity. So I start getting the curiosity about how much longer this is going to go. But in the meantime, if you'll take a moment and click share beneath this video and invite your friends, your colleagues, your community, the more folks who attend, the richer the conversation. And also take a moment, just because I'm playing with new sound. Let me make sure you can hear me. Go ahead and click into the comments, whether you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, and let me know where you're joining in from today. Always curious where folks are from, and it's always a good way to find out if you can hear me. Oh, all right. So this is again another mobile broadcast here in Colorado with my family. I got a couple of the kids here this week, so it's a nice, relaxing start to the day before we go hiking at altitude and see how that goes. It's interesting. I sort of a flashback episode this week, and I realized that the I guess the straight up way to say it is the intentional, heartfelt words of someone who's dying tends to carry more weight. Um, at Carnegie Mellon, CMU, Carnegie Mellon University, professors are invited to contemplate, and if they're up for it, and they'll take the challenge, to deliver what used to be called a last lecture, right? It's to think deeply about what mattered to them and give that hypothetical final talk, that idea that what wisdom would you impart to the world if you knew it was your last chance? And in September 18th, 2007, Randy Pausch, um, he was only 46 at the time. My God, he was an engaging, dynamic computer science and human computer interaction design professor. He worked with the Imagineers at Disney. He was so early in the forefront of 3D modeling and creating worlds, and had phenomenally popular classes where people created worlds at Carnegie Mellon. Back in September of 2007, he delivered his last lecture. It was 1 month after being diagnosed with terminal pancreatic cancer. Yeah, it includes stories of his childhood. The last lecture includes lessons he wanted his children to learn and things he wanted his kids to know about him. But for us, it's a lesson in how to lead your life. You know, if anyone had the right to complain, it would be this unbelievably loving husband, father of 3 small children, with another half of his life in front of him. Yet one of the lessons learned that he shares simply: don't complain, just work harder. That lesson is fleshed out more fully in the book that's based on that last lecture. And this is the quote we're playing with today: complaining does not work as a strategy. We all have infinite time and energy. Any time we spend whining is unlikely to help us achieve our goals, and it won't make us any happier. Any time we spend whining is unlikely to help us achieve our goals, and it doesn't make us any happier. Yeah, I know last week the quote we played with was, playing with the idea that structure of bitch, moan, and whine, of giving yourself a container in which to get that out, to expunge those thoughts, to get the bitching, moaning, and whining down to a fixed container, a fixed amount of time. And again, man, anytime we spend whining, anytime we spend complaining is unlikely to help us achieve our goals, and it won't make us happier. See, those ideas are playing against each other. And look, over the 20 million views of his original video, it was posted in December of that year, I easily count for a dozen. I've shared this talk and his book hundreds and hundreds of times in the last 12 years. See, the video was posted in December of that year, and Randy died on July 25th, 2008, just a month before I started my journey to becoming a coach. His video and his book landed for me at a very, open and raw time. Achieving my dream is one thing, but it's not the most important. The most important thing that I do, the most fulfilling thing that I could ever do is helping people imagine, name, achieve, and then live their dreams. That is the lesson I learned from Professor Randy Pausch. That was super early in my journey. When it works hard and the obstacles are insurmountable or the fear is all encompassing, what good does it do to complain? I mean, not that I don't, I still wrestle with this as well. But how does it serve? Whom does that serve? All the time that I spend whining and complaining and bitching and moaning is taking time away from doing what I'm here to do, serving the folk I'm here to serve, being there with and for my family, and being there with and for myself. Every single moment of my life and of our lives, every second of the finite time we're given is an opportunity to be intentional and to be fully alive. Because Randy said with such a twinkle in his eye, he said, I'm going to keep having fun every day I have left because there's no other way to live. So what are you going to do with the time that you've been given? And that's really the question that comes out of this. And when you go back to his quote, complaining doesn't work as a strategy. We all have finite time and energy. Actually, we have finite time, effort, energy, and attention. That's a theme that runs here. And anytime we spend whining is unlikely to help us achieve our goals or enabling us to help others achieve their goals. And it won't make us any happier. So what will you do with the time that you've been given? Yeah, no, Dorothy, I really appreciate that. Dorothy says, interesting. I think that what's changed since his last lecture was not work harder, but to work smarter. I've always said that complainers is that if you're complaining and not solving, you're whining. Solving is the strategy. Yeah, and even more than that, Dorothy, it's being with is the strategy. One of the quotes I love from Einstein is he said, "I'm not that. It's not that I'm smarter than anybody. It's that I stick with the problem long enough." And I think the challenge we run into, particularly, I know the problem with me when I'm in a whining stage is I haven't stayed with the situation. I haven't stayed with the problem long enough to resolve it. And it's not that I've stopped solving. I've probably not even started. It's that I'm just jumping, whether it's into doing mode or being mode or bitching mode. Either way, it's stepping out of being with the problem and considering it. And you're right. The work harder is an older style approach, but then again, this was 14 years ago that it was written. Yeah, the trick is to know when to quit. There's a great little book, and it is a little book from Seth Godin called The Dip. It's particularly about knowing when to quit and knowing when it's not time to quit. And The Dip was a really interesting book. It actually helped me in my exit, figuring out when it was time, if it was time or if it wasn't time. I actually haven't picked it up since then. But for anybody intrigued with playing with an idea of, am I sticking with it too long or not long enough? The Dip was a great little, The Dip is a great quick read to pull on that. So I go back to the question, what will you do with the time you've been given? Yeah, Robin, that's a good question, both for Robin Jorgensen, who's on the broadcast this morning, and Dorothy Liu, both of whom are doing incredible work in the world. I'm super curious how you'd hold that question. What will you do with the time you've been given? Your work is so big and there's so much you're looking to do. And yes, we have finite time. So what will you do with that time? And look, we've just stepped into August. And I've caught myself saying, "Holy crap! How did the year get this far gone?" And it's so easy. Well, no, I don't want to generalize this. For me, it was very easy to tip into, "Wow, it's August. What the hell? What happened to all the stuff I wanted to get done by the middle of the year? Did I get it all done?" And easy to tip from there into the complaining. And yet, I got 5 months of the year left. I had to do the math real quick. I have so much time this year alone. There's so much opportunity. And the most important thing is, Robin, as you said, be more intentional with each moment. Dorothy says, I think a lot about legacy. I think it's the age that thanks, Dorothy, the age that we are. We're theoretically 2/3 done. So what does that chapter 3 look like? Yeah, by the way, when Elaine and I moved into the current house, we were just past 50. So I named our network Back 50 because I'd love to see the runway in front of me as having that full measure, the full 100 years. So yeah, Back 50. All right, so I don't buy into being 2/3 done. I'm buying into being half done. And yeah, chapter 3 or act 3, what does that next creation space look like? And that's what I'm in the middle of playing with right now is what is the work that I'm doing between now and 2045 when I hit 80? What's that next mission? How will it look in the world? I know how it feels here. I know what the components of it will be, but I don't know how to look out there yet. And this is one of those places where being with this open issue, I don't call it a problem, long enough to extract that answer. I have so much time left in 2021. I have so much time left, period. And yes, intentionality is the key. Once time is spent, it's spent. Once energy or energy or effort or attention are spent, they're finite. So being intentional about how we expend those four most critical currencies, that's what, for me, the remainder of this year is calling for. It's interesting. One of the likely the very, I think the most meaningful point of Randy Pausch's last lecture is he makes the point that, and it is at the very, very end, he says, it's not about how to achieve your dreams. It's about how to lead your life. And if you lead your life the right way, karma will take care of itself. The dreams will come to you. And I encourage you to watch his last lecture because that's not just, magical thinking. He actually laid out over his lecture exactly how he created the environment where his dreams came to him. When you live your life the right way, the karma will take care of itself. The dreams will come to you. And that's the opportunity. Yeah, Dorothy, thank you for bringing that up. Chip Conley says that the old worldview is that there are 3 chapters: childhood, work, retire. The new view is at least 5 chapters. And it's interesting, Elaine and I have been using the term rewire instead of retire. I don't see us sitting by a body of water with a stick and a string and fishing and spending our time in a more traditional retirement type sitting stillness. For us, it'll be rewiring and doing something next, but different. Yeah, Susan says, to cultivate awareness to distinguish between complaining versus constructing. It's a spectrum and a challenge for me to have that self-compassion, to realize that healthy and purposeful self-care is not the same as habitual complaining. Absolutely. And also there's a matter of expressing to get it out and getting it out in a healthy way. It's a beautiful distinction. Yeah, I gotta it's so good to go back to that idea of intentionality and that being the key. So for this week, being intentional about how you're expending your time, effort, energy, and attention, because any time we spend whining or complaining is unlikely to help us achieve our goals and it won't make us happier. So this week, be intentional about how you're expending your resources and work on being happier. And between now and next Monday, give yourself this challenge. Work on being happier and being super intentional about not complaining. And I'll see you next Monday, same time. Be well.